What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Prophecy Misfits Podcast. This is episode 338, End of an Empire. And we're going to be going over some things because the further we continue to go the direction that we've been watching for a while here, it sure seems like the end of the American Empire is upon us. Now, that's not doom and gloom. That's not, anything like that. That's just based on what we're seeing right now. It's pretty fascinating what we're watching right now. So, we're going to be going over a few things regarding what's going on with that. A ton of things, everything from food stuff to the the tariff stuff. Interesting things when it comes to what's going on with possibly stuff with the upcoming midterm election stuff. We'll kind of talk about that. There's things going on with Venezuela. Again, more escalation there and a whole bunch of other stuff. So there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about. And a lot of it kind of indicates the end of the American Empire towards authoritarianism. And stumbled across something that has to do with historical markers, land markers and stuff. 16 steps towards authoritarianism, and we pretty much have most of them covered so far, so it's going to be pretty interesting. So we got a bunch of stuff to talk about, but if this is your first time in here, this is what we do on Tuesdays and Saturdays. We get together and we watch for things, we warn about things, we sound the alarm. We're called to be like in Ezekiel to be watchmen. We're called to pay attention to the enemies on the outside of the walls, to warn the people on the inside of the walls of what's coming. And I know I've been on my soapbox a bunch of times about that, but it seems most people seem to like to wait until the enemy is within the walls before they start shouting. But for us, we like to pay attention to what's going on the outside. And so, but ultimately, while we're seeking all this stuff, going down rabbit holes and rejecting the narratives and asking questions and just pondering what's going on, the ultimate goal is to get people to Jesus. So that's what we do. So welcome in. Glad to have you here. If you're new, that's what we do. Hopefully you stick around and all that type of stuff. So this should be fun. This should be interesting. And I know a lot of people kind of get depressed or they start getting anxiety or whatnot when we talk about stuff like this. But I think it's important that we talk about it, and we should be encouraged as opposed to depressed about the things happening. And so we just got to remember that. I'll try and remind you guys as much as I can as we go through this tonight. So so just might as well go ahead and do it. For those on Rumble and the website, you don't really know what's going on. But over on YouTube, they decided to do the stupid transition over to people now being recognized by their @handles, the actual handles that you signed up for YouTube with, as opposed to channel names. And so a lot of people have different @handles than channel names. So this just makes everything super confusing. So everybody's going to have to reintroduce themselves and so on and so forth. Fortunately, we don't have to worry about that on the other platforms. So YouTube is just doing stupid stuff. This is part of their rollout to protect people who pretend to be other people. There's 1,000 other issues that YouTube has that people have been complaining about for several years now, none of which has to do anything with this, but this is what YouTube is deciding to fix rather than all the other issues. So, good job, YouTube. You are terrible. Yeah, you're just terrible. That's gonna be fun stuff to try and get reacquainted with everybody, because nobody knows who anybody's who is anymore. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, and the other thing that came rolling out with that is I had to verify who I was in order for me to have any access to my channel anymore. So that was fun. So YouTube has decided to make sure that they come at me and verify that it's actually me on the account. So that was fun. Yeah, that was a lovely little thing. I tried to go into the creator side of my YouTube channel, and it said you must verify yourself before you can do anything. So yeah, I had to deal with that. So YouTube is just doing what they're doing, and it's absolute trash. Coming along with that, because of the name transition, I am, of course, I got the Nats still in here. Because of that transition, I'm not able to bring people up on screen anymore. So our lovely fellowship and introductions and stuff like that, as of now, because of this transition, I'm not going to be able to do. So just hello to everybody in the chat. So glad you're all here. And yeah, so I appreciate all of you guys, love you guys, and all that stuff. So sorry, this is what we get with YouTube. All right. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get into what we got when it comes to housekeeping. Let's do that.
Housekeeping?
No, thank you. Sleeping.
Housekeeping?
All right. So for housekeeping, usual spiel, if you guys can, like, share, subscribe, get this out to as many people as you can. It's not about views, not about butts and seats, but it is about getting the warning out to people and getting people to Jesus. So if you guys can do me a solid and like, share, subscribe, I'd certainly appreciate it. Again, we're here to try and to help people understand what's going on. Now, of course, we don't have all the answers here. I don't proclaim to have all the answers. I don't know what's coming around the corner and all that type of stuff, but we just try to at least take the approach of a different angle, not just go along with the narrative, not hang on to our biases and so on and so forth, and just make sure that we're helping people try and understand exactly what's going on around here. But ultimately, with that, we share the gospel. A lot of people are looking for some type of answer. They don't have the Lord, and so hopefully we can help them with that. So liking, sharing, and subscribing does help reach those people. So if you guys can do me a solid. Also, if you guys can, follow me Rumble and Telegram. Those are my backup channels. If I get booted off YouTube, we'll be back up live streaming over on Rumble. Who knows what's going to happen with YouTube with all their crap. But yeah, make sure you guys follow me on Rumble, Telegram, post updates, announcements, and other little things here and there that I can't necessarily put in video format. So make sure you guys go ahead and follow me over there. If you don't like Rumble and Telegram, I understand. Just make sure you guys follow me on the, or bookmark the WretchedWatchmen.com website. That's your one-stop shop for everything that's going on. Whether it's latest podcasts and live streams, announcements, my free book is there, Eden to End, Mystery Religion of 17 can all be Revelation 17 can all be found there. So make sure you guys go ahead and bookmark that website. If anything does happen on any of these platforms and stuff like that, the website will be there. So unless they rip that off the internet, which I don't think they would, but yeah, so that's there. Make sure you guys bookmark that page. And then if you guys like to support this channel, what I got going on, I got donation links down below, CashApp, Venmo, and GiveSendGo. This channel is not monetized. I don't make anything from ads, views, or anything like that. I don't sell anything. I don't do any of that type of stuff. It is solely donation based that makes this thing run. So thank you guys for your support and your donations and everything, your prayers and encouragement. I appreciate you guys. Truly, you guys are the ones that make this run, and I'm definitely blessed by you guys and by the Lord. So thank you guys. All right. Couple other things. Just want to just go over a few of these things. It's been a minute since I've done that, so I want to go ahead and do it now. Since I'm getting an increase of them, if you're gonna send, excuse me, if you're gonna send me an email. And it's an email complaining about the lights that I have in the background, complaining about the shirts that I wear, complaining about the music that I use, complaining about how I do my podcast and stuff like that. Don't waste your time. Basically, the moment that I see that you're sending me an email like that, it's going to instantly just get deleted, and I'm not going to give a second thought to it. So I know a lot of people might not like this, but I'm just going to be blunt. I don't particularly care about your preferences on how I dress and look and do things. I just don't. So if it's a actual problem that's biblically based, that will be addressed and handled. I have people who watch and make sure that is that I'm sticking on track on that. But if it's a preference, I just don't care. Don't waste your time. If you don't like it that bad, go somewhere else. So I've had a whole bunch of increase of emails regarding that. I just don't care. So I just want to go ahead and address that. Also, I know I have a whole bunch of new people coming in because I had a video that kind of took off there. A whole bunch of new people come in. If you're posting comments about date setting, about Trump being the Antichrist and using numbers and stuff to try and do it, you'll just be straight up banned. I don't do that type of stuff. I don't even want it on my channel. So if you're posting stuff like that, you're just going to immediately get banned. That's just how it's going to be. I don't mess around when it comes to stuff like that. That's terrible stuff to get involved with. So that's just going to be banned on that. For those who are in chat, I just want to throw this out there. Don't feed the trolls and let my tools be tools. What I mean by that is if people come in and they're clearly trolling the chat, don't talk to them, don't address them, don't even point them out. Because all you're doing is feeding them. They feed on engagement, and if you give them engagement, they will stick around. My tools are there. If they notice it, they'll take care of it. But if nobody even addresses that they're there, they'll most likely go away on their own. So please don't feed the trolls, and also let my tools be tools. I've noticed that there's been an increase of people who keep somebody will say something that maybe a different thought around here that's actually not a bad thing, and there will be 2 or 3 people that says we have a troll in the chat when they're not a troll at all, and this keeps new people with different opinions and ideas of things from coming in and joining the chat. If it's not, against the Bible or theologically messed up or anything like that, everybody's free to have a different opinion on stuff, except when it comes to the gospel, of course. But just let my tools be tools. That's what they do. We don't need miniature tools up in the chat. So just want to put that out there as well. So I think that's everything. Just a couple things that I wanted to go over. I feel like there was one other thing, but I didn't write it down and I can't remember. So we're just going to go ahead and move along. Okay. So that's what we got for housekeeping. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and get this show rolling. And we're going to get into the Wretched Weather Report.
Everybody got their fancy hats? Let's go!
All right, so for the Wretched Weather Report, what we do is we keep track of the trends of what's going on when it comes to weather stuff. And there is a lot of things happening around the world when it comes to natural events and everything like that. And of course, we have noticed, because we're keeping track of the trends, they're increasing in size and frequency. Half of the world is still getting flooded by incredible rain right now. That's something that we noticed has increased. And so we know these are part of the birth pains that are going to increase in size and frequency as we get closer and into the day of the Lord. So we just keep track of these things. Again, I am not a geologist, a meteorologist, a weatherman. I'm not the Queen of England. I'm none of that stuff. But we just keep track of what's going on. And as far as earthquakes this past week, we had a drop in large-scale earthquakes, as you guys can see. And just keeping track of 5.5 magnitude and up. We have, this past week, we had a 5.8 in Santiago, Philippines, a 5.5 in Pinas, Ecuador. Ecuador. We had the large one of the week is a 5.9 in Quipos, Costa Rica. I can't roll my tongue, otherwise I would. Then there's a 5.6 in Vilichinsk, Russia, a 5.6 in Tual, Indonesia, and then a 5.8 in Nimuro, Japan. Again, several of those. If I could roll my tongue, that would be really nice, but I can't do that. But yeah, so that's what we got with earthquakes. So it has dropped, the number has dropped significantly, and no really large ones. We've had a string of large ones, 6s and 7s, the past month or so. As far as volcanoes this past week, we have 43 active eruptions happening around the world right now. We're up to, from last week, I forgot to put the numbers on there, I apologize. But we're still below the usual global average that we have, which is 44 to 48. So we're sitting at 43. We have 8 in North America, 5 in South America, 2 in Europe, 2 in Antarctica, 4 in Africa, 16 in Asia, and 6 in Oceania. And so that's what we got going on with volcanoes around the world right now. Moving into what we got going on, I'm sure some of you guys have been paying attention and noticing we have another hurricane. So Hurricane Melissa was a tropical storm, made it into a Category 1 hurricane today, but it's really whipping fast and getting ready to move. They're saying about a Category 3 by tomorrow. And so Hurricane Melissa strengthens into a Category 1 storm in the Caribbean. Maps show its forecast path. This is Melissa. Mike Tyson all of a sudden. Hi, this is Mike Tyson for Encyclopedia Britannica. Anyways, Melissa strengthened into a Category 1 hurricane on Saturday, and it's forecasted to bring life-threatening and catastrophic flash flooding and landslides to Jamaica, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic early next week. The Miami-based National Hurricane Center warns Hurricane Melissa, the 13th named storm of the Atlantic season, isn't expected to have major impacts on the mainland United States, but it could be the strongest system this season. Melissa's core was about 145 miles southeast of Kingston, Jamaica, and about 235 miles southwest of Port-au-Prince, Haiti. The Hurricane Center said maximum sustained winds were 75 miles per hour, with tropical storm force winds extending some 115 miles from the storm's center. It was inching west-northwest by just 1 mile per hour. And so this thing is getting pretty hairy, pretty large. When you start seeing purple like that, you know there's some force in there. It also says it becomes a hurricane it became a hurricane by Saturday and was expected to become a major hurricane, meaning Cat 3 or higher by Sunday. And so I been checking from max velocity, and he's saying that thing is about ready to hit. Just skip Cat 3 or skip Cat 2 and head straight into Cat 3 by tonight. So it's picking up speed pretty fast. So be praying for those in this region in the Caribbean, Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, and all those regions over there. Looks like they're about to get blasted hardcore over there. And of course, that's not only the storm itself, but like this is saying, landslides, flooding, and possibly some other occurrences that happen during storms like this. So please be praying for those in the path of Hurricane Melissa right now. So, man, these things are powerful. The weather is just powerful, I'll tell you what. Another thing that we had when it comes to the weather is last night in the Dallas-Fort Worth region here in Texas, there's a lot of crazy storms that hit, flash storms, hail, some flooding and everything like that. And what we have going on is the weather system for Fort Worth. They weren't running all of their systems. And because they weren't running all their systems, they decided that there was no need for a pre-warning of tornado threat over there. And then they said that they traveled to Fort Worth and surveyed the damage and said, no, there was no tornadoes or anything that happened, even if you heard otherwise. But again, going off of max velocity here, he was running the proper systems for that area, and looking at the damage that he has seen, he said that there was indeed a tornado that did touch down, not very powerful, but it was a tornado that touched down for a couple minutes in that region, and there actually is damage on the ground that shows that a tornado did hit that region. So this is a case of you have the officials saying one thing, and then you have the independent dudes saying another. It's up to you on what you want to go with that. Personally, that's why I watch the independent guys, not so much the official people. So it seems like that there was indeed a tornado that did touch down in Fort Worth in that region. So I don't know. I know we have a whole bunch of people who watch in Texas. If you're in that region, can you confirm that there was a tornado in that region? And again, a lot of structural damage and stuff because of the storms in Texas. But that's what I got when it comes to the natural events happening. Again, I can't cover everything. Otherwise, we would just become a weather channel at that point. But if there's something that I missed, something that you know about that I don't know about or I didn't mention, go ahead and throw that in the chat. And please continue to be praying. Again, seriously be praying for those in the Caribbean that looks like they're going to get hit by a massive Hurricane Melissa there. So that Titus 2 Life says, yes, even the Texas storm chasers called it a tornado. Yeah, that's where I think Max was also following them when he was doing his reporting, saying they were confirming that a tornado did touch down. So, that aligns. Again, there's some great independent guys. Like I said, Max Velocity and Ryan Hall are good at what they do. So, I'd be following those guys. Okay. That's what we got for the Wretched Weather Report. Good stuff. All right, we got a ton of stuff to cover, so we're going to go through this and try and get through this and not be here all night, because I think we got a whole bunch of, or we all got stuff tomorrow that we got to take care of. We don't want to be here all night. So we're going to start off with this, and we're getting a whole lot of one report says one thing, another report says another, official says one thing, official says another. And so I kind of want to go over this because this is coming up here on the deadline real quick. And I know there's actually quite a few people who watch who either utilize food stamps, or you have family and friends who do utilize food stamps. And so let's talk about what's going on. So it says the USDA says it won't use emergency funds for food stamps. The agricultural department said it can't use, and I want to highlight that word specifically, can't. It says the agricultural department says it can't use contingency funds to pay for food stamps during government shutdown, and that states won't be reimbursed if they cover the expenses on their own, according to a new memo. Starting next month, about 42 million low-income people won't get Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program SNAP benefits if Congress doesn't agree to a deal to fund and reopen the government. Now, we're not going to get into a conversation about the SNAP thing itself. Whatever your views on it, if you're for it, against it, it doesn't matter. We're not going to get into that. This is the here and now of the system that we're in right now. There's a lot of people that rely on it, and it's not going to be there. So that's what we need to focus on right now. It says now it's the 24th day. The shutdown threatens to take a real toll, not just on federal workers who are going without paychecks, but also many of the nation's neediest citizens. And the SNAP freeze could kick in as increasing numbers of Americans are going hungry and relying upon food banks as the economy cools. Remember, we covered that a couple weeks ago, where the government program that provides food assistance to the food banks in order to make sure that they're stocked and ready to go. That was also canceled as well because of this. And, when it comes to stuff like that, we know there's only so much that churches and stuff can do. I know there's a lot of churches out there, especially right now, they're all getting ready for like the Thanksgiving stuff and whatnot. But you're looking at 42 million people who are on food assistance. Churches can't handle that, and the food banks on their own can't handle that. So this is becoming a storm. We're going from tropical storm to hurricane when it comes to what's going on with the food thing right now. So keep that in mind. It says the SNAP program has contingency funds that could cover about 2/3 of the shortfall. And we're not even going to get into all that garbage. But it says, but the USDA issued a one-page memo Friday saying that the fund is only for true emergencies like hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods that can come on quickly and without notice. For example, Hurricane Melissa is currently swirling in the Caribbean and could reach Florida. As of right now, the pathway doesn't really go for that, but they're just using it as an example. The memo is using it as an example. Having funds readily available allows the USDA to mobilize quickly in the days and weeks following the disaster. There's no provision or allowance under the current law for states to cover the cost of benefits and be reimbursed, the memo also warns. So what we're getting from the memo here from the USDA is it says we can't use it. We're legally not required to. And it's more for emergencies, like if there's a natural disaster or something, like if that happens. Well, the thing is, if we head over here, and this is coming from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, that may not be true. This could be another lie. It says Trump administration is legally required to provide SNAP in shutdown, contrary to its claims. Statement of Sharon Parrott, the CBPP, which is right here, Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, whatever, president and former Office of Management and Budget official. So the OMB, which oversees a lot of this stuff, she used to sit in that thing that used to oversee it. On Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins' false claim that the Trump administration cannot provide November SNAP benefits during the shutdown. Secretary Rollins claims that the Trump administration is unable to deliver November SNAP benefits during a shutdown is unequivocally false. In fact, the administration is legally required to use contingency reserves, billions of dollars that Congress provided for use when SNAP funding is inadequate, that remain available during the shutdown to fund November benefits for the 1 in 8 Americans who need SNAP to afford their grocery bills. The administration itself admits that these reserves are available for use, which we just read the report about the memo that said that they're there and available for use, but just not for this. And it says it could have and should have taken steps weeks ago to be ready to use these funds. Instead, it may choose not to use them in an effort to gain political advantage. And that's the key, because that's the thing that we've been talking about for a long time about what's going on right now. When we see what's happening, and we've talked about it, where this government shutdown appears to be possibly a permanent situation, and they're using it to completely redo the entire government system that we see in front of us. And that includes eliminating things like this, food programs for the food banks and the SNAP stuff. I saw a report, I can't remember exactly what it was about, but the Trump administration was even looking to eliminate certain benefits or disability things for veterans, like healthcare stuff. But the judges actually stepped in and canceled that and said that ain't happening. You're not touching that. But we're seeing all this stuff. They're furloughing jobs, eliminating jobs, specifically targeting Democrats, federal workers, just workers, not politicians, workers who align themselves with Democrats parties, and they're firing them from their jobs and stuff. What we have is complete targeting. This is a total governmental system revamp. And so when you see something like this, a memo that, according to this person, now again, if this is true or not, I'm not an expert when it comes to the legality of SNAP programs, so I'm not claiming to be. But according to this person who used to work in the Office of Management and Budget, they're saying that memo is just a flat out lie. They're choosing not to, for whatever reason that, again, we can speculate on what that reason is, but we don't necessarily know what it is. But it seems to me that this is a choice that they're making to do this. It says, speaking as a former OMB official, I know from experience that the federal government has the authority and the tools it needs during a shutdown to get these SNAP funds to families. Even at this late date, the professionals at the Department of Agriculture and in the states can make this happen. And to state the obvious, benefits that are a couple of days delayed are far more help to families than going without any help at all. It would be unconscionable for the administration to go out of its way to threaten millions of children, seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities, parents, and workers with hunger, rather than taking all legal steps available to provide food assistance to people who need it. And this is basically that. And again, whatever your view on if it's what it is and whatnot, it is true. We have a system here that's just, they're not making the steps to do it. They're not doing it. And that tells me that they're not doing it for a reason. So again, I've received quite a few emails from people who either they're on it, they have a family member who's on it, they have friends who are on it, and they're talking about how, yeah, in their state, they're not going to be able to do it. In their state, they're not going to be able to do it. And some of them are saying, we'll be all right. We can figure it out. But I'm hearing more and more stories from people that they're just not quite sure. They're going to be short towards the end of the month. And so this is a problem where the longer that this goes on, if it goes on, again, things can change rather quick. So, but the longer that this goes on, if it was to go on, a lot of people just think in the immediate, well, it's like, oh, if it happens for a couple weeks and then they get everything turned back on, everybody will be fine. But it's a reoccurring effect because all those people who they have a choice, especially right now, do I eat or do I stay warm? Do I keep the heat on? And so whatever they choose, there's going to be an effect a recurring effect that'll trickle down for a while. So this is going to be interesting to see. I'm not sure what's going to happen. This could be another case where lines at the food banks. I'm seeing videos that lines are already forming in some areas for food banks and stuff like that. And so you guys remember what happened during 2020 when all the people lost their jobs and the food banks were packed and running out of food and stuff like that? We may start seeing that again. So again, when we see this, and I hold to it right now, from my view and everything that I'm seeing, we are seeing a piece by piece dismantling of the American empire right now in front of our very eyes. A lot of people are oblivious to it. A lot of people aren't paying attention to it, or they're refusing to believe it. But from my perspective, I believe that we are absolutely seeing that right in front of our face right now. And again, the longer that this goes on, and the more that I see, there's a chance that the government may never turn back on again. Again, this isn't fear. This isn't, clickbait. This isn't sensationalism or anything like that. I don't do that. I'm just telling you from what I'm seeing that there's a chance that this is the new reality. And we, as the church right now, are truly witnessing. I mean, America was teetering on the edge as it was. The United States were teetering on the edge, and we may start to see it fall. But I always like to look at it, the illustration of when the world starts falling off the edge and starts going down, we're going to get snatched and pulled out and go up before that thing starts going all the way down. So I always like to look at it that way. Encouragement. And it's what keeps me sane during stuff like this when we watch it. That's what keeps me sane. So brings comfort to me. Utilize that to comfort fellow believers around you. Again, we're supposed to edify each other with this stuff. So, all right. Sticking with all this stuff, we have the U.S. hits $38 trillion in debt after the fastest accumulation of $1 trillion outside of the pandemic. The U.S. government's gross national debt has surpassed $38 trillion during the federal shutdown, marking a record high. And there's Scott Bessent, Treasury. Remember, he's a George Soros protege. Remember that. Worth noting, he's the one that caused the collapse of the pound back in the 90s, if you guys remember that. We covered that already, but always worth remembering. This is in the midst of a federal government shutdown. The United States government's gross national debt surpassed $38 trillion on Wednesday, a record number that highlights the accumulation of debt on America's balance sheet. It's also the fastest accumulation of $1 trillion in debt outside of the coup. The U.S. hit $37 trillion in gross national debt in August this year. So we were at $37 trillion in August. We're just at the tail end of October, and we already hit another $1 trillion in debt. Keep in mind, through all this, we've been told that the tariffs were supposed to actually help reduce the debt and fix everything, but it's actually going faster. Fascinating. It says the $38 trillion update is found in the latest Treasury Department report, which logs the nation's daily finances. Kent Smetters, that's one of those names. What's your name? Kent Smetters. Okay. Kent Smetters of the University of Pennsylvania's Penn Wharton budget model, who served as George W. Bush, his Treasury Department. I love that Kent Smetters. Kent Smetters, you guys through some hard times during those things. Again, he's the one that told me to tell you guys to everybody go out and go shopping. That's right. While we're out there in the Middle East and killing all those terrorists and bad guys and going after the WMDs and all that type of stuff, just go out there. And Kim Smetters, he's taking care of us. Mr. Smetty, that's what I like to call him. Every time I'd see him, I said, hey there, Kent. Mr. Smetty, how you doing? Sorry. I've lost my mind, guys. I'm telling you, the amount of stuff that I've looked at this week, I've lost my mind. Anyways, so Kent Smetters who served as President George W. Bush Treasury Department, told the Associated Press that a growing debt load over time leads ultimately to higher inflation, eroding Americans' purchasing power. Has anybody had your purchasing power eroded as of late? I have, just going from my perspective. The Government Accountability Office outlines some of the impacts of rising government debt on Americans, including higher borrowing costs for things like mortgages and cars, lower wages from businesses having less money available to invest, and more expensive goods and services. Says the Trump administration says its policies are helping to slow government spending and will shrink the nation's massive deficit. A new analysis by Treasury Department officials states that from April to September, the cumulative deficit totaled $468 billion, with a B, billion. In a post on Twitter Wednesday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that's the lowest reading since 2019. So they're helping slow government spending. Well, that's the thing, is if you're revamping the entire government and you installing a brand new authoritarian government, getting rid of all the workers and eliminating all the departments and all the extra stuff and everything like you are, then yeah, they're reducing the budget there. But when you're doing that, you're creating a bigger divide between the kings on top and the peasants down below. And when you start doing that, and we've already started to see it, then you have the government, the administration coming out and blaming everything upon the financially poor and the homeless and all that type of stuff, saying they were the problem and so on and so forth. And that creates the bigger divide. And that's a part of how you create authoritarianism. Again, I got a list that we'll go over at the end of this, and I think you guys will see what's going on. So, but yeah, 38 trillion, and it's gaining momentum on this. Part of the problem that's helping with that is the tariffs. And when I say helping with it, I mean helping speed up the deficit, not actually helping fix it. It says Trump ends trade talks with Canada. Oh, Canada, home of the Golden Toques, over tariffs. And that Ontario premier now says he'll phase out. It says President Donald Trump announced he's ending all trade negotiations with Canada because of a television ad sponsored by one of its provinces that used the words of former President Ronald Reagan to criticize U.S. tariffs, promoting the province leader to later pull the ad. So there's no point in going over this whole article. I'll just kind of explain to you what's going on. So what happened is one of the provinces, the leader of the province of, I believe it's Ontario, they were going to put out, or they did, they put out an ad utilizing a speech from Ronald Reagan where he was opposing tariffs. He was against tariffs and saying that Canada is one of our allies, a close ally. We need to make sure and so on to kindle that fire between us and keep things open and whatnot and issue tariffs upon each other. And so that's a real speech that Reagan said during his presidency. That was a real speech. We know tariffs, one of those guys that's a part of the club too, but that's a different conversation. But that's just for the people who like to point out, well, you know, so-and-so was a part of that club. Yes, we know that. Talking about the here and now. But that was a real thing. And so Donald Trump got all up in his fee-fees about this, and he cried into his McDonald's box and decided that he was going to cancel all trade talks with Canada because they created a fake AI advertisement against the tariffs with the voice of Ronald Reagan. So he didn't even know it was a real speech before he started calling it out. And so because he canceled all talks and stuff like that, the premier from Ontario said that he'll pull the ad and he won't. They were planning on showing it during Game 1 of the World Series because it's the Toronto Blue Jays are a part of that, and said we won't even do that. Well, that was a lie because they actually did play the ad during the speech during the World Series, and so Trump got all angry about it, and now he installed a 10% extra 10% tariff on Canadian goods. It's like, I'm telling you, it's like children. It's like, we're going to do this ad and throw it out there. Well, I'm going to respond and just throw a tariff at you because I'm going to do this. It's like they're children. It's all theater. But that's the thing, is when you do stuff like that, everybody gets all up in their own arms about it. All the monkeys start flinging poo at each other. The left and the right start flinging poo at each other. because they have to defend their guy and so on and so forth. And it's a good distraction. It's really a good distraction. So this thing is still ongoing. Who knows what's going to happen? Again, the latest thing that we saw was 10% tariff thrown on. Pressing the wrong buttons. You guys don't need to see the intro again. But 10% tariff on Canada in retaliation for its Reagan ad. It says Trump said he'll increase tariffs on Canada by another 10% in response to a Canadian anti-tariff ad that features Ronald Reagan. Trump announced the decision on Saturday in a Truth Social post, which he called the ad fraudulent, which it's not. It's actually true. The advertisement, which featured Reagan criticizing tariffs, aired during the Major League Baseball World Series game on Friday. Because of their serious misrepresentation of the facts and hostile act, I am increasing the tariff on Canada by 10% over and above what they are paying now. Yeah. The Ronald Reagan Foundation actually came out and defended Trump on that, saying that it was a fake AI-generated speech. And it's always fascinating because even the Ronald Reagan Foundation, who's supposed to have all of the information regarding stuff like that, doesn't even know that it was a real speech by the guy that their foundation's named after. So go figure on that one. It just goes to show how just stupid all of this is. Now, the thing is when we look at this, we realize how chaotic it is. You know, this is why we don't necessarily talk about the tariffs too often, because they're always up and down, up and down. This country and that country. I mean, the dude even threw tariffs on a continent that has nothing but penguins on it. But still, we look at that from the outside because we're not really involved with what the inner workings of everything, and we think, oh, it's just chaos. It's just throwing stuff willy-nilly around and whatnot. But I always like to remember it from the perspective of order out of chaos. And so while we look at it and go, this is chaotic, it's not making any sense. How on earth can anything get done through something like this? It's the order out of chaos that comes, especially since we know, and I've played the video before, but you look at Marina Abramovic, who twice said that Trump is the chaos magician. And he's the one that brings chaos. He flips everything on its head, but that's a good thing because then order will be restored through the chaos. And so it's just a confirmation of what we know of how this stuff works. And so while it may look chaotic, I believe it's absolutely organized and planned accordingly. So we need to keep that in mind as well. All right, sticking with chaos, it says tariff costs to hit 1.2 trillion in 2025. Consumers to bear most of the burden, reports S&P. S&P Global projects Trump's tariffs will cost 1.2 trillion in 2025, with consumers bearing most of the burden amid rising inflation and shifting supply chains. I agree. Why do I agree? Because I'm personally getting hit by it. Says tariffs imposed under Trump's ongoing trade strategy will cost global businesses 1.2 trillion in 2025, according to a new analysis by S&P Global, with the majority of the burden falling on the consumers, not the companies. So this is one of those things where we were told when the tariffs go in, it's against the countries, right? That's what we're told. These are financial attacks on the countries that are sending stuff to us, when we knew from the get-go that's not true, because it's the companies who import the stuff who have to pay the extra tariff fees before they can get it on the shelves and sell it to us. Now, do you think the corporations, do you think the companies that import that stuff are going to eat the cost of that and not raise prices for everybody else? That's a lie. We know that that's exactly what's going to happen, is they're going to raise the prices. And so when they put it on the shelves, everything is going to be a lot more expensive, and we're the ones that have to pay for it. Even though the government, Mr. Besant there, said that the prices aren't going to go up for people. These tariffs are imposing on the other countries. Again, that's just a lie. And so we have proof right here. Anybody notice that the prices of everything is going up? Everything is going up, and I'm noticing it. Always worth mentioning, and I always like to put this in there, when prices go up, they don't come down. Once you get prices to go up, the companies aren't going to all of a sudden start lowering those things down. It's like, we already got them to pay this price. We're just going to keep them paying this price. And so when the prices go up, they don't come down. It says in a white paper released Thursday, S&P said the estimate, which includes data from 15,000 sell-side analysts covering 9,000 companies, is likely conservative. The costs stem from a range of trade actions, including across-the-board 10% tariffs on all U.S. imports, plus specific levies on kitchen cabinets, timber, autos, and more. The sources of this trillion-dollar squeeze are broad. Tariffs and trade barriers act as taxes on supply chains. That's exactly what they are. Tariffs are taxes. And that's taxes that we pay on top of the tax. So you're basically paying, if you guys haven't figured it out, when you get your paycheck, you're paying income tax. And then whenever you go and buy something, you're paying the sales tax on that, including the tax of the tariff import that it came from on top of that. So you're getting taxed. There's probably another one in there. So we'll say you're getting taxed 4 times to buy one item. And so that's where we're at right now. So fun times, right? Fun times. Let's see here. Collectively, these forces represent a systemic transfer of wealth from corporate profits to workers, suppliers, governments, and infrastructure investors. According to the report, just 1/3 of the tariff costs will be absorbed by businesses, with consumers shouldering the remaining 2/3. That consumer burden is likely an underestimate, S&P warns, as declining output means buyers are paying more for less. If we jump down, it says a Goldman Sachs report released Sunday challenges that claim, suggesting that the U.S. consumers are currently bearing as much as 55% of the tariff costs, with that number expected to rise. If more tariffs are introduced, including those Trump has threatened on products like furniture and kitchen cabinets, which he already did, this report came out before that tariff was put on, Goldman estimates that consumer burden would climb to 70%. And then here's where we start getting into something that we need to watch very closely. The Supreme Court is set to hear a challenge to Trump's tariff strategy on November 5th, and businesses appear to be watching closely before making long-term pricing decisions. So there's multiple things here. We got the Supreme Court is getting ready to hear some stuff about Trump's tariff power. We'll get to that in just a second. So we have that. Worth noting, it says before businesses even make long-term pricing decisions. So right now, we're just getting the here and now short-term price lift on everything that we're buying. If this thing goes through, this decision with the Supreme Court approving Trump's tariffs powers, those long-term pricings, you may see an immediate, just straight up increase of prices to try and counter the tariffs that are going to be coming in the future because of the power that Trump has just received regarding it. Now, what is that exactly? And this is the important thing that we really need to be watching. This is going to set a precedent that we've got to pay attention to. It says, with tariff case, retired judges say the SCOTUS could give Trump tyrannical powers. A bipartisan group of former judges warned the Supreme Court could dangerously alter the power dynamic between the 3 branches of government. Nearly 36 former federal judges issued a stark warning to the Supreme Court on Friday, cautioning that the justices' approval of Donald Trump's unilateral global tariff war could usher in tyranny in the White House. And that's this right here. We're not going to look at the document, but this is the issue by the former judges that they sent to the Supreme Court. It says, for the court order to rule that the president alone, I want you guys to pay attention to this, for the court to rule that the president alone can exercise unlimited legislative powers without judicial review of a determination that a national emergency exists would give the president tyrannical powers, the judges wrote. Basically, what this thing is and what the Supreme Court is going to be determining is, in any case, at any time, the president alone has sole power to issue tariffs on anything in any country that he wants to. So kind of like what we've seen so far, none of that is technically legal. but he's doing it anyway. And so it's going to the Supreme Court to determine if he can or cannot do that. And so that's why this is important. It says the High Court will hear arguments next month over Trump's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to levy sweeping global tariffs without congressional authorization. 31 retired judges nominated by Democrats and Republicans joined a brief pushing the justices to reject Trump's claim over legislative authority. Article 1 of the Constitution gives Congress the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations, and yet Trump says the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, gives the executive branch authority to utilize tariffs during a national emergency. He also claims that the judicial branch can't review his decision. That's what Trump is arguing. In April, Trump issued an edict implementing across-the-board reciprocal tariffs to counter trade deficits. He subjected some countries to higher rates based on supposed connections to drug trafficking. The judges said IEEPA allows for no such thing. They said Trump's actions demonstrate a belief that he can do whatever he wants to when it comes to tariffs. We respectfully submit that this is not the law, the judge wrote, under our Constitution and its carefully allocated and separation of powers, Congress cannot hand its tariff-setting authority over to the president, lock, stock, and barrel, allowing him to aim it wherever, whenever, and however he pleases. Now, here's the thing. We'll get to the rest of this in just a second. Here's the thing. When the government is shut down, and Congress ain't in the picture, if Trump decides it's another emergency and a national security issue, he can just bypass his way through all of this. That's what he's been doing on everything. That's how they're getting all this stuff done. That's why they're implementing it. That's why the shutdown was completely orchestrated and still is. That's why we see at the beginning of the week, every week, Mike Johnson, who's in the club, who continues to go out there and said House is on recess for the next week. Again, over and over and over again. It's because they're getting everything done, bypassing the three branches. They're bypassing the Constitution. They're bypassing all the legal stuff. They're bypassing everything because that's what we're witnessing right now. We're seeing a complete dismantling of the entire government system. Now, again, I know there's going to be some people coming at me. That's exactly what we need. How it was working wasn't working before. That's an entirely different conversation. We're talking about the here and now. We're not talking about the what ifs in the perfect world, the reality, all that in that type of stuff. We're talking about what is happening right here and right now. And they're dismantling the entire country and refitting it for this Project 2025 corporate authoritarianism system that we're watching them build right in front of our faces right now. It goes on to say, giving the president the unreviewable authority to decide whether he may exercise emergency powers would be antithetical to the balance of powers that our founders established as the bedrock of the Constitution, the judges wrote. Friday morning, Trump went on a tirade about a TV advertisement pushing back against the tariffs. That was the Canadian thing. He put out there, of course, in all caps, the United States is wealthy, powerful, and nationally secure again, all because of tariffs. The most important case ever is in the United States Supreme Court. God bless America. And so on and so forth. So that's what we have going on in front of us with that. If we keep going, it says the Supreme Court showdown looms for Trump's tariffs. Will it limit presidential power? This is coming on November 5th, the Supreme Court hearing. It says Trump has been claiming vast powers at the expense of other branches of government on the grounds of various emergencies, quote unquote emergencies. He has used these claims to justify sending troops to U.S. cities and deporting non-citizens and detaining United States citizens without due process under a law dating from 1798. Trump imposed sweeping global tariffs under the auspices of International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977. Most legal experts agree, and so far 3 lower courts have ruled that this act gives him no such power. And there's a lot on this thing. But it says these threats may persuade conservative Supreme Court justices who are already take an expansive view of executive power and who have so far enabled Trump's acclamation of it. So it's talking about basically creating national security through tariffs and all this type of stuff. And the fact is a lot of the justices that currently sit on the Supreme Court, if you guys remember, issued a declaration that says any action in the core responsibility of a president is you can't prosecute him for doing it, which was basically handing dictator-style powers over to the president through it. Those are the same people who issued that are going to be determining if Trump can do all of this or not. This is the administration, and this is important too. The administration has already vowed that if it loses in the Supreme Court, it will find other ways to impose tariffs under different laws that have the same effect. Say that again if you guys didn't catch it. The administration has already vowed, that if it loses this case in the Supreme Court, it will find other ways to impose these tariffs under different laws that have the same effect. So basically what they're saying is, we don't care what the Supreme Court rules on November 5th. We don't care. We have already determined that we're going to bypass it anyways. Anybody think that that's a problem, specifically here in the United States with how it's supposed to be set up? Anybody think that that's a problem? It says the significance of the Supreme Court's decision may not be about the tariffs themselves, but about whether it recognizes any limit to presidential power. That's why this is definitely worth paying attention to on the case of this. Now, it's funny. It's fascinating. Because the whole host of talking heads and pastors and so on and so forth that like to just throw around the founding fathers all the time, just throw them around, we need to get back to what this was, the leftists and so on, they're destroying what the founding fathers were doing. We have rule of law. We need to get back to the Constitution. We need to get back to the Bill of Rights. We need to get back to the three powers of the three branches of government. And we need to get back to everything and restore what this country was and how it was formed. And all the founding fathers are rolling over in their graves and so on and so forth. You guys know what I'm talking about. We hear it all the time. The pastors themselves, the prophecy teachers, all the prophecy conferences, they like to bring in all the historians and experts and stuff saying Trump is trying to fix all of that. Well, the problem is because they have their heads shoved so far up where the light doesn't shine because of their personal biases, because of the political theater that's in front of them, they're not even paying attention to the fact that Trump is wiping himself with everything that you deem sacred in this country, but you don't care. Why? Because it's your guy. He's literally saying, I don't care about the rule of law. I don't care about the Constitution. I don't care what the Supreme Court says. I don't care what the Congress says. I don't care about the three branches of government. I'm going to do whatever I want to do that benefits me. And yet all the historians that say we need to go back to what all the founding fathers did are clapping for the very same guy who is desecrating what the founding fathers did. And you're going to sit there and tell me that I need to listen to you to know what is going on, like I'm going to get fed non-biased information? Yes, the left has been wiping their rear ends with it forever too, but so is the right. Why is that? Because the Constitution means nothing to these people. This is the lawlessness that Scripture has told us is going to be coming in these last days. What is the law of the land here in the United States? It is the Constitution. It is the Bill of Rights. That's the law of the land. That's what we abide by. So when people do what they're doing, whether they're left or right, I don't give a rip if it's a Democrat or a Republican. If they're going against the law of the land, that is lawlessness. That is exactly what Scripture said these times are going to be like. But the problem is you got hundreds of pastors out there who are all fed this garbage from these historians who clearly have an agenda behind them, and these quote unquote journalists and so on and so forth. They're going by personal bias. They're not going by everything. They're saying, well, the scripture says lawlessness. Look at the left. Look at the left. Look at the left. Don't look over here. Look at the left. Look at the left. And you're telling me that I'm supposed to listen to you to get truth? I'm supposed to listen to you to get discernment about the scriptures that you're preaching? I don't trust the thing that's coming out of your mouth. It's not for you to determine what is true and what is not. It's complete propaganda, complete theater, left and right, inside the church, outside the church, because everybody has a stinking agenda because they're all still hooked up to this political theater that's going on. And I got people that are emailing me and leaving comments and stuff that they're just, that they're so confused. They're confused because they're hearing one thing from one thing, and then they come and listen to me and says, but this is not what they're telling me over here. And they're sitting there, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to believe. You wonder why people are so confused, so deceived. Got an email, it was just a reminder because I remember when it first came out, I called it out, but it was just another thing. It sent me a picture of a book called The Days of Deception, and it was written by Jack Hibbs, and it had a foreword written by Mike Pompeo. And I remember I responded, and I said, that's funny because one of the biggest deceivers in the church is writing a book about how not to be deceived. It's remarkable. No wonder everybody's running around like a chicken with their head cut off because they don't know what's going on, because they're getting fed lies from everywhere. And the one place that you should be able to go to get sound teaching and truth, you can't get it there from anymore. You just have to go by your own reading, your own determination, your own discernment, which again, discernment is one of those things where the Holy Spirit giveth and taketh away according to his plan. It's not something that just because you're a Christian, all of a sudden you have discernment. I hear that all the time too. It's like, well, I have the Holy Spirit, so I have discernment. It's like, that's not how it works. Go into Corinthians. It specifically talks about how discernment is a gift that the Holy Spirit gives to certain people and can take away. So we need to keep that in mind too. But that does not determine that you still have a brain. You still have a brain. You can still look at something and see if it's true or not, to a certain extent, obviously, but to not be super confused. Now, I know I'm on a soapbox. I know I probably just irritated a bunch of people with that. I don't care. It's a problem. It's an absolute problem that's happening right now. Now, I went back and I wanted to look at some stuff because I wanted to see in the past when this was after Trump was bailed out by the Rothschild family and the Saudi Arabian prince, and before he started his presidency. I wanted to kind of take a look in that period where obviously he was being groomed and prepped to take his position. Again, if people haven't figured it out by now, on this channel, me personally, I don't believe in elections. I believe there's selections. People are handpicked, orchestrated to put them into these positions of power and whatnot. Your vote means absolutely nothing. It's just the illusion of choice. But they were grooming Trump during that period of time. When you get bailed out by people of that position, you become a puppet for them. That's how it works. And so I wanted to see some of the stuff that he was talking about during that time and see if there's something that I can figure out from his up and coming to what we see happening, if there's a connection. And so what I found was this was an interview in 1985. It was a 1985 interview with Manhattan Inc. magazine. And it was specifically talking about partnering with nuclear Russia to dominate third world countries. And so they were going through a bunch of stuff, and he brought up something about the ultimate deal. And They asked, they said, the ultimate deal, Trump's plan, what is that? And Trump said, this is from his interview, maybe we should offer those countries something. I'm saying you start off as nicely as possible. You apply as much pressure as necessary until you achieve the goal. You start off telling them, let's get rid of it. If that doesn't work, then you start cutting off aid, and then more. You do whatever is necessary so those people will have riots in the streets so they can get water, so they can get Band-Aids, so they can't get food. Because that's the only thing that they're going to do The people, the riots. So his mentality back then was not only to team up with nuclear Russia, which again, if you want to dive into his history, he's got heavy ties to the Kremlin. He's got heavy ties to the Russian mafia and so on and so forth. We're not going to get into that stuff, but he has ties there. So team up with Russia and then get people to conform to your control, your authority by halting aid, halting food, halting water, and get them to riot in the streets. So that was back in 1985. Well, if we jump forward, this was an interview that he did in 2014 and said, Trump said in 2014, riots would fix economic crash and return country to when we were great. This was in 2014. This was just a couple years before his 2016 presidency. This is his call-in. This is a video from 2014, him talking about it.
Well, you know, Clayton, it is tough for the Republicans, I think, because a lot of people are in this category. You're talking about a big category, and if anybody comes out against it, or if anybody goes against the new Democratic line of stuff, they're going to be, it's going to be hard in certain areas. Now, you know what solves it? When the economy crashes, when the country goes to total hell, and everything is a disaster, then you'll have you'll have riots.
It has been reported that.
So when the country collapses, goes to total hell, and when there's riots in the streets, that'll make the country great again. Let me get rid of that video at the bottom. Can't get rid of, there it is. That's what he said in 2014. Similar to his take in 1985. And what we are currently witnessing right now is, it looks like the beginnings of trying to make just that happen here in this country, doesn't it? With the restrictions that he's putting on food, the elimination of jobs, the economy is tanking, and the tariffs that he's imposing, all of these things. Is it possible that this is the plan, the ultimate deal that he's implementing? It says, in damning comments made on television in 2014, Trump told Fox News that total hell would make America great again. The then TV host made an appearance on Fox and Friends in February 2014 to condemn Obamacare and Americans who were not in work whilst backing Vladimir Putin's Russia. You know what solves it? When the economy crashes, when the economy goes to total hell and everything is a disaster, Trump said in 2014. Then you'll have riots to go back to where we were when we were great. The now U.S. president told Fox News that the Americans should give Russia a pass because we're going to win something important later on and they won't be opposed to what we're doing. Is it possible that we are witnessing that ultimate deal being laid down in front of us right now in this country? Again, we have seen everything of the dismantling of the government. We've seen the deployment of these mercenaries around the country, as well as the federalization of the National Guard and so on and so forth. And now we're starting to see everything being done to collapse the economy and so on and so forth. It seems like this is an implementation of that. Do with that what you will. Now, with that too, We have an update on the Hegseth Pentagon press policy. Now, I keep bringing this up. It's important, guys. This really is important because what we are seeing state-run media being created. That's what this is. Because, again, that press policy is a restriction on what anybody can report coming out of the Pentagon building. It must be approved and hand-selected by the officials at the Pentagon for it to be released. And so what we have is a creation of state-run media. And we have some new signees upon this thing. So again, we've gone over the not signing: New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, AP, Reuters, Atlantic, CNN, NPR. We've talked about those not signing. None of them have crossed. They're not going to sign. They're not going to get involved. So we've covered that. The new ones signing, they're the ones in red. Oh man, I called some of these. We have Real America's Voice, Lindell TV. Yes, that's the pillow guy. Mike Lindell, who's all a part of the MAGA train. Lindell TV. Gateway Pundit is one of those that I have said over and over and over again. Don't get your information from them. They are clearly there as a propaganda organization. Washington Reporter, Human Events, which is Jack Posobiec, the National Post, Red State, Post Millennial, Just the News, Daily Signal, Timcast, Tim Pool, TP USA, Turning Point USA Frontlines. That's the one I called. I said, watch, Turning Point is going to sign this thing. There they are. And InfoWars. You just can't make this up. This is absolutely hilarious. So again, One American News, OAN, we know that was created as state-run media. Epoch Times is a joke. Federalists, Oxfam, and these other foreign groups and whatnot, some freelancers. And then you have Real America's Voice, which is a joke. Lindell TV, which is MAGA train. Gateway Pundit. Not most of them, but some of these are connected to the Wellness group, which is connected to Eric Prince and Rumble and all that stuff. We've talked about it, like Gateway Pundit is. Jack Posobiec is just one of those propaganda influencers. Red State and Post Millennial, Just the News, Daily Signal, Timcast, Tim Pool. Tim Pool was connected to Tenet Media. I don't know if people realize this, connected to Tenet Media, which had people like Lauren Chen, Benny Johnson, Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, and so on and so forth, that was actually getting financed by the Kremlin, by the Russian Kremlin. So Tim Pool was connected to a media group and was taking money from the Russian government for his reporting. Somewhere, I think it was $100,000 per video for that type of stuff. So you're going to trust Tim Pool on that. Turning Point USA, of course, we already know about that. And then InfoWars. When that was announced, the InfoWars one was announced, a speaker, I think it was Parnell, came out and said, no. We didn't accredit InfoWars. We accredited, was it Brianna something, as an independent journalist. Well, Brianna's a host on InfoWars. So even if they gave her the credentials to be independent, she's going to go get that information. Where's she going to report it on? InfoWars. So it's InfoWars. So those are the new ones that are signing on. You are literally seeing state-run media being put right in front of your face. Now, again, people are going to say, well, you look at the other ones, the New York Times and Wall Street Journal and stuff like that. Those are all, you can't trust them either. Yeah, you can't trust them either. Obviously, you can't trust any of these media. Don't even trust me. Go and look this stuff up yourself. But at this point, what we are seeing is a complete shift. All of those media groups that were, doing what they were doing with stuff, they're the ones that are calling stuff out now. They're the ones that are actually, and especially since they're being pushed aside. So just something to keep in mind on that. But yeah, these like Lindell and Gateway Pundit, Tim Cast and TP USA Info, that stuff's just terrible. One American News, Epoch Times and stuff. You're looking at the same thing like CNN and NPR and Atlanta when it comes, or the Atlantic on the left side. That's the same thing, but just on the right. So just keep that in mind on that. So, but yeah, do with that information what you will. and all that jazz. All right, let's keep going. Still have a lot of stuff to cover. Some of these we're just going to kind of fly through. But yeah, we have this one that just came out. Trump Jr. linked drone company wins Pentagon contract. Unusual machines secured deal as U.S. military accelerates domestic production of unmanned aircraft. It says a little-known drone company backed by Donald Trump Jr. has won its largest ever contract from the Pentagon as the U.S. government expands its drone procurement. Florida-based Unusual Machines, in which Trump Jr. has held a $4 million stake, said it had been contracted by the U.S. Army to manufacture 3,500 drone motors alongside various other drone parts. The company added that the Army indicated it planned to order an additional 20,000 components from Unusual Machines next year. Alan Evans, the company's chief executive, said he believed it was the largest order for Unusual Machines parts from the U.S. government to date, but declined to disclose the value of the contract. Unusual Machines brought Trump Jr. on as an advisor in November 2024. The Financial Times earlier this year found the shares of the company almost tripled in price the weeks leading up to the disclosure of the move. Imagine that. Soon after Trump Jr. came on board, Unusual Machines disclosed that he owned over 331,000 shares, which would currently be worth $4 million. It's funny because where's it at? It says, in response to questions about the Pentagon contract, Evans told the Financial Times that Don Jr. did not advise or do anything else on this deal. He goes on to say, Don has never communicated with anyone in the administration on behalf of the Unusual Machines or about the contract in question. Anybody believe that? I don't. And this is just another one of those shady deals that they continue to do over and over and over again. And there's evidence, there's proof that the Trump family, anytime they get involved with business, whether it's crypto, whether it's military stuff, whether it's media companies or anything like that, the moment that they get involved with it, all of a sudden there's an explosion of financial deals being made between other countries or the United States government and so on and so forth, and they make bank. So that should be no surprise for us on that. All right. Jumping over, excuse me, to Venezuela. We got some information here. So speaking of corruption, Senate GOP chair declines hearing on Trump's boat attacks off of Venezuela. Senate Foreign Relations Chair James Risch has no plans at this time to hold an oversight hearing on the Trump administration's deadly strikes on vessels off the coast of Venezuela. So basically what they're saying is, well, everybody is saying that we need to start looking into this and we need to figure things out and put a restriction on everything and it's illegal what he's doing and so on and so forth. But the guy that would make that happen is basically saying, nah, I'm good. It's all good. That's what he's saying. Yeah, if we jump down, it says Thune and others have acknowledged that any extended campaign could run into the War Powers Act, which authorizes Congress to declare war. And so with all of this going on, they don't want to do oversight. And basically Trump has said over and over and over again, and that's why it's important, that it's a war on the cartels. It's a war on the Venezuelan cartels. It's basically saying we're at war, but yet Congress has not approved it. And as we know, the president cannot just declare war on his own. And so even though that's technically what he's doing, because he's calling it a war. And basically the guy who can oversee this is saying we're not going to do it. And so this is where his words just recently, when asked about it, are very telling, that he doesn't care about legality. He doesn't care about the Constitution and the rule of law. He's just going to kill people. This is straight from his own mouth.
And briefed them on the operations.
No, we
against
will
these.
go, I said.
You will go. And
We
it would
will
be
go.
difficult
We're
for them
gonna
to
go.
object.
I don't see any Lawson going. No reason not to. You know, they'll always complain, oh, we should have gone. So we're going to definitely, I'd like to just tell you, let's go. We'll go.
And Mr.
We're going to
President-
tell them what we're going to do, and I think they're going to probably like it, except for the radical left lunatics.
And Mr. President, if you are declaring war against these cartels and Congress is likely to approve of that process, why not just ask for a declaration of war?
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead. Okay?
We're just going to kill people. They're going to be like dead. We're not going to go through Congress. We're not going to declare war. We're not going to do it the right way. We're just going to kill people. Straight from his own mouth. Straight from his own mouth. All those historians that want to restore the founding fathers and the rule of law and the Constitution are going, yay! Though, which is, I just had to throw it out there because they are. Says Trump said he will not seek authorization for cartel strikes. The president said he would bypass Congress rather than ask for approval for his military campaigns against drug traffickers, even as he said it would expand from sea to land. Trump said on Thursday that he would bypass Congress rather than seek its approval to carry out military strikes against drug cartels that traffic narcotics to the United States, even as he vowed to expand the operation from attacks at sea to targets on land. I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war, Mr. Trump told reporters of his campaign of deadly strikes against vessels in the Caribbean Sea near Colombia and Venezuela. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country, okay? We are going to kill them, you know? They are going to be like dead. Such proficient words. What a wonderful vocabulary he has. He made the remarks during a news conference at the White House to promote the work of agencies that Trump said were working to arrest, prosecute, and permanently remove people who are part of the elaborate drug cartel operation inside the United States. So if you're in the United States, they're going to do all that stuff. But if you're outside the United States, to heck with due process, we're just going to kill you. That's basically what he's saying. It says the Constitution gives Congress the authority to declare war, but formal declarations are rare and have not been issued since World War II. Lawmakers have often passed authorizations for the use of military to grant the president permission to use force against specific targets. That has not happened with this. The last time a president sought such a resolution was in October 2002, when W. Bush asked for authorization to use military force against Iraq. Congress approved that measure, and it has been cited for decades as the legal basis for military operations around the world carried out by subsequent administrations of both parties. And like I said, he's talking about this, how this is war. He's basically saying this is war. And at this point, we're not even going to do it the right way. We're just going to do what we're going to do. Again, this is part of Project 2025. We've talked about that before. They've got a massive buildup that's of military units in that region, and they're adding more to it. We'll get to that in just a second, but we have this as well. This is bipartisan senators to force vote blocking unauthorized war in Venezuela. This is supposed to come next week. They're supposed to vote on this next week. It says a group of bipartisan senators will force a vote on a war powers resolution to block the use of force by American troops within or against Venezuela after Trump raised the possibility of attacks against Maduro's regime. The measure is being led by Senator Tim Kaine, a member of the Senate Armed Forces Committee, Rand Paul, a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and Adam Schiff are co-sponsors. Wow, Schiff. Yeesh. Trump, on Wednesday, he had authorized the CIA to carry out covert operations inside Venezuela. If you are telling the public that you have CIA doing operations in another country like that, they want you to know that they're there. Remember that. Saying he was focused on land operations and raising the specter the president has looking to remove Maduro from power. And so this is a total regime change that they're trying to do. So this bipartisan vote to block unauthorized war in Venezuela is supposed to vote on that next week. So pay attention to that as well. And then more buildup in the region. It says the U.S. to deploy USS Gerald R. Ford to Latin America. The United States military is sending an aircraft carrier to the waters of South America. This is a big boy. This isn't no little dinghy that they're putting out there. This is one of the big boys, and they're moving it down towards Venezuela. Military sending this aircraft carrier to the waters of South America in the latest escalation and buildup of military forces in the region, the Pentagon announced Friday. Defense Secretary Hegseth ordered the USS Gerald R. Ford and its strike group to deploy to U.S. Southern Command to bolster U.S. capacity to detect, monitor, and disrupt illicit actors and activities that compromise the safety and prosperity of the United States. USS Ford, which has 5 destroyers in its strike group, so this is not only the aircraft carrier, but also the destroyers that go along with it, 5 of them, is currently deployed to the Mediterranean Sea. A person familiar with the operation told the Associated Press that one of those destroyers is in the Arabian Sea and another is in the Red Sea. At the time of this announcement, the USS Ford was in port in Croatia on the Adriatic Sea. And I think that's all on that one. So we got an aircraft carrier and destroyers moving that way. They didn't say how many destroyers are going with it, but the aircraft carriers usually have to have at least one there as extra protection. So my bet is 2 or 3 of them will probably go down with it. That's just my guess on that one. So more deployment in that region. Then we also have this. It says Hegseth restores but downgrades Pentagon Office of Net Assessment. The internal think tank has a legendary status in the Pentagon and will no longer report directly to the Defense Secretary. Defense Secretary Hegseth has restored but downgraded an independent internal Pentagon think tank focused on future wars. Restored an internal Pentagon think tank focused on future wars. Do with that what you will. 7 months after dismantling the agency in the name of accountability and efficiency, Hegseth ordered the reestablishment of the Office of Net Assessment on October 16th. In an October 16th memo to senior Pentagon leaders saying it will be reinstated, though no longer report to him directly. Instead, the office will be placed under the charge of the Pentagon's Director of Administration and Management, Robert G. Salas, with Deputy Defense Secretary Stephen Feinberg entrusted to functionally manage the office's top official, the Director of Net Assessment, as appropriately. Keep in mind, Deputy Defense Secretary Stephen Feinberg is also one of the people leading the charge to privately finance the military. So keep that in mind. The ONA holds a unique and legendary status within the Pentagon as a bastion of independent strategic thinking, unburdened from operational concerns. The office was established in 1973 in the depths of the Cold War contest against the Soviet Union and its proxies, making comparative assessment of the U.S. military and its rivals to point out potential shortcomings and advantages. So we have that as well. Sure seems like they're prepping for something, doesn't it? Y'all good? Did I lose anybody? Hopefully I'm not losing anybody. There's a lot of stuff that we're covering, I know. But yeah, this is something else. Dino says there is a reason why they changed the title to the War Department. Yeah, well, even that's not legal either. It's still this Defense Department, this Department of Defense, because it has to go through congressional approval to get changed, and they never did. So that's another thing that they did that's actually illegal and unofficial as well. So it's funny on that one. Just like it's still the Gulf of Mexico. It is not the Gulf of America. That has not been officially approved. So again, they're just doing whatever they want to do. They don't care about and Congress is just sitting there. Why? Because they were told to. They were told, sit on your hands, twiddle your thumbs. We're making a transition. Again, this is just more proof that the whole idea of voting and Congress and all this stuff is just, it's an illusion. It's just a lie. It's just there to cause division. It's there to distract. It's there to keep people blind from what's really going on. even though if you just look at it, it's obvious. It really is obvious. And it's just more show that Satan's gaining more ground and moving forward with his plan, which of course we know falls under God's sovereignty and prophetic plan that he has told us is going to happen because it's already happened for him. So you get to choose who you want. Do you want the politicians who are under the control of Satan's minions, who we know is going to fail, or do we want to trust in the one who's sovereign, who has already seen what's going to happen and has already told us how it's going to happen? I know whose side I'm picking on that one. All right. Moving on from war. Moving on from Venezuela. Let's take a look at what's going on with this. Now, with this thing, the East Wing ballroom construction, I know a lot of people are talking about it for a whole bunch of reasons. I don't think any of that stuff really matters. The ballroom itself and all that stuff, I don't think any of that matters. Because I think the true goal with this isn't the East Wing, isn't the ballroom. The true goal has to do with what sits underneath the ballroom, which is the Emergency Operational Command Center for the President. That sits underneath the East Wing. So I think what they're doing on top is there to distract people from what they're actually doing underneath. Now, what they're doing underneath, I don't know. But I think that's the true objective when it comes to this. So my suggestion, this is just my suggestion, you're free to do what you want to do. As illegal as it is to demolish the East Wing like he's doing, which it absolutely is illegal what they're doing, by the way. I don't think it's worth getting distracted and all worked up and stuff over it. I think we need to pay attention to what's happening underneath, because if they're getting that operational command center updated, upgraded, however you want to say it, privately, or again, these are private donators. I got the list of some of them. And we see everything else going on. They may be getting something ready for what's coming in the future. This is the Trump administration is planning to demolish the entirety of the White House's East Wing, which they already did. It's gone. It's already been wiped out. As early as this weekend, two senior administration officials told CBS News, part of a projected championed by Trump to add a ballroom to the complex. Mr. Trump said Wednesday that the ballroom will cost $300 million, which is up from the $200 million figure that the White House officials initially cited. The White House said that the project will be funded entirely by private donors, some of whom have pledged 7 or 8 figures. In an interview, whether you believe him or not, I don't necessarily believe anything that comes out of his mouth. But he said that they've received so much financing for this ballroom that they have some left over that they may put forward towards the Arc de Trump, which is basically building a giant archway in Washington, D.C., which is very familiar to what a lot of kings and dictators have done in their country. Just go through the history and you see these arches are made by a whole bunch of these authoritarian regimes and placed in their country. And Trump he's already got the figure. I haven't shown anything about it, but the model of the archway is already there and so on and so forth. So it says right here, though, the bunker under the East Wing will be upgraded, sources told CBS News. The White House military office is handling the renovation of the bunker, which is known as the President's Emergency Operations Center. And this is how it works. This is the layout, if people don't know. West Wing is the Situation Room and Oval Office. Then there's the White House itself. But on the East Wing, underneath the East Wing, is the President's Emergency Operations Center. And I believe the whole thing about what they're doing with the East Wing has to do with that. Why that is because, again, we've seen some stuff where they're probably going to need that thing. Plus, it's going to need an upgrade. And some of the people who have been donating to this thing are people that can help in that upgrade. So here's a list of donors paying for Trump's new White House ballroom. If we just jump down, though, you got Altria Group, Amazon, Apple, Booz Allen Hamilton, Caterpillar, Coinbase, Comcast, Hard Rock International, Google, HP, Lockheed Martin, Meta, Micron Technology, Microsoft, NextEra Energy, Palantir, Ripple, Reynolds American, T-Mobile, Tether, Union Pacific Railroad, J. Pepe and Amelia Fengul, Adelson Family Foundation. I haven't talked about them before. I'm working on something. There's a lot around that name, so hang on to that name for future reference. Stephen E. Brody, Betty Wold Johnson Foundation, Charles and Marissa Cascarilla, Edward and Sherry Glazer, Harold Ham, Benjamin Leon Jr., the Lutnick family, the Laura and Isaac Perlmutter Foundation, Stephen A. Schwarzman, Konstantin Sokolov, Kelly Loeffler and Jeff Sprecher, Paolo Tiramani, Cameron Winklevoss, and Tyler Winklevoss. We've talked about them in the past. But yeah, you got people like Meta and Google, Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, Palantir, T-Mobile that are all donating to this thing. Something tells me that they're going to be donating to the underneath part, not necessarily the ballroom itself. Also worth noting, White House will allow anonymous donors to contribute to Trump's ballroom project. While the administration has released a list of some donors for the ballroom addition, an aide told NBC News that donors also have the option to remain anonymous. So I wonder who else is anonymously donating to the bunker that'll be built underneath this ballroom as well. So when it comes to the ballroom thing, again, I don't think it's worth getting all caught up in the thing itself, the ballroom itself. As stupid and illegal as that all is, I think it's a distraction for what they're putting underneath. I have seen some pretty interesting suggestions for what Trump should call the ballroom. Everybody thinks it'll be called the Donald J. Trump ballroom, but somebody said, well, or there's a group of people, an activist group that came out and said you should call it the Charles, whatever his middle name is, Kirk Memorial Ballroom, which that wouldn't surprise me if they did that. But the suggestion that I found most interesting, which I think might fit it better, is the Jeffrey Epstein Ballroom. Because we know how much him and Jeffrey Epstein were friends and whatnot. So it would make sense that he would name such an extravagant ballroom after his best buddy, Jeffrey Epstein. So interesting. So, but yeah, I think it's the bunker underneath. Now that's definitely something we're not going to get information about. But again, if they're updating that while they're also doing what they're doing right now, they may be preparing for future events, which may have something to do with this. Researcher who has distorted voter data appointed to Homeland Security election integrity role. So, going over this, of course, we've already mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again now because I know there's going to be somebody who's going to try and correct me on it and stuff like that. Again, voting means nothing. And when you go back to 2020, it was 2020, wasn't it? Yeah. 2020 and the whole election thing, we heard it forever. The election was stolen. The Democrats did the election rigging and so on and so forth. And we've touched on this in the past, but just a reminder, obviously it was rigged. Obviously it was election fraud. Obviously all that stuff was there. Why? Because that's how the elections roll. Every election is rigged. But the reason why 2020 is so important is because they purposely showed their hand. They purposely showed all of the stuff to make it look like the Democrats stole it. Now, most of you know why, and that's because, first of all, Biden was the selection. He was always the selection for that because Biden was in there to cause the chaos that he did. and to be the one that participated in the stolen election, the rigged election, which caused the massive buildup of support and push for Trump to come back in and fix everything. We should all know that. That's pretty obvious at that point. If they're going to go to the lengths of making the stolen election that obvious, you know they did it on purpose, and then we know the campaign that they did for Trump going forward. But during that, one of the main people that was involved with trying to overturn the stolen election is this chick right here. And this could play a part for something in the future. It says a conservative election researcher whose faulty findings on voter data were cited by President Trump as he tried to overturn his 2020 election loss has been appointed to an election integrity role at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So one of the people that was pushing to fix the 2020 rigged election was appointed by Trump for the election integrity role at the Department of Homeland Security. Heather Honey is now serving as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Election Integrity in the Department's Office of Strategy, Policy, and Plans, which this is straight from Homeland Security from their website, and it has the order. She's right here in this box. Heather Honey, the Election Integrity Office right here. I can't make it any bigger. But that's her right there. She's been placed in there. And it says her new role, which didn't exist under President Biden, also comes as Trump has used election integrity concerns as a pretext to try and give his administration power over how elections are run in the United States. So he created a position at the Department of Homeland Security for election integrity and then placed this chick in that position. Now, if we jump over here, it says Trump empowers election deniers still fixated on 2020 grievances. We get some pretty interesting stuff, again, that may play a part in the future of this dismantling and reorganization of the government in the United States as we see. It says election officials from nearly all 50 states gathered on a call last month with the Homeland Security Department's point person on election integrity, eager to hear how the woman filling in a newly created Trump administration position might help safeguard the vote ahead of next year's midterms. Rather than offering assurances that the federal government's election protection programs would continue uninterrupted, the new official, Heather Honey, instead used portions of the meeting to echo rhetoric that has infused the right-wing election activist movement that emerged since Trump falsely claimed that his 2020 defeat was a result of widespread fraud, according to 5 people with the knowledge on the call. Again, we know that it is rigged. Elections are rigged. You don't have a voice. And this was clearly a psyop to get him prepped for what we see happening now. We need to make sure that we're on that same page going forward so we can understand what's going on here. It says Miss Honey, a leader in the movement until her appointment in August as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Election Integrity. She was brought in August, complained that her department's cybersecurity experts tasked with combating misinformation about elections had strayed from their mission. The remark echoed a widespread view on the right that the agency had sought to silence supporters of Trump's fraud claims. Miss Honey also repeatedly mentioned a report often cited by the election conspirators to support their claims that voting machines were rigged to favor Democrats. They were, because you needed to purposely get Biden in there. Again, I got to repeat that because I know there's going to be somebody who's only going to hear bits and pieces of this and try and correct me on it. And it's like, just pay attention. So here's the important part that might be playing a part coming up here in the future, could be relatively soon with midterm election stuff. And this could play a major role in this shift around the United States and the government itself. It says, in the past few months, Trump has elevated multiple proponents of his fraud claims into high-level administration jobs. Now, as government insiders, these activists could wield their newfound power to discredit future results or rekindle old claims to argue for a federal intrusion into locally administering voting systems. On a call with right-wing activists in March before her appointment to the Homeland Security Department, Ms. Honey suggested that the new administration could declare a national emergency. Everybody pay attention? Honey suggested that the new administration could declare a national emergency and justify dictating new rules to state and local governments. She said that this could be based on an actual investigation of the 2020 election if it showed that there was a manipulation of the vote. And therefore, we have some additional powers that don't exist right now, she said in March, according to a recording reviewed by the New York Times from someone who joined the call. And therefore, we can take these other steps without Congress, and we can mandate that states do things and so on. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up, because if we had this coming out and everything that we see happening, the shuffling of the powers, the executive powers, the shutdown of the government, if the government was still running and they were going through Congress and stuff, none of this would really hold water. It's like, whatever, this is just, you're just throwing something out there to sound things or whatever. But the fact that the government is shut down and they're doing everything to bypass how everything's supposed to be done legally, and the people who are in control, Project 2025, and the shift that we've seen that they're doing, again, the laundry list of things we talked about over and over and over again. We're not going to go over them again. This seems to be holding some water. Now, I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen, but there's some validity to taking actual action that's happening in reality. And hearing this, it's possible that these are validating each other for something that's coming up in the future. And we know that Trump has been using national emergencies or emergency declarations to get all this stuff done. Who's to say that he doesn't declare a national emergency before all this stuff happens, all the election stuff happens, and so on and so forth? That's what she's suggesting. If we jump down, it says the idea of reinvestigating the 2020 election gained steam recently with the White House's decision to hire Kurt Olson, a lawyer who has been tasked with examining the 2020 vote and other election matters, according to the White House official. The hiring of Mr. Olson, who has worked closely for years with the pillow entrepreneur Mike Lindell to promote stolen election theories, was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. Another activist, Marcy McCarthy, who spread debunked claims that the voting machines in Georgia about voting machines in Georgia, when she was the chairwoman of DeKalb County Republican Party, was named in May to be the Director of Public Affairs at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, which is housed at the Homeland Security Department. And here she is. This is the one who is a part of the Georgia voting machine stuff, Marcy McCarthy. She's now Director of Public Affairs. If we jump down beyond her professional achievements, McCarthy is recognized political leader serving for 3 terms as the chair of the DeKalb Republican Party. McCarthy also served as on numerous task forces and boards with the Georgia Republican Party, as well as the national delegate to the Republican National Convention in 2020 and 2024. So she is indeed part of that as well, and now she's public affairs at CISA. Ms. McCarthy's appointment comes as nearly all of the election experts at CISA have been placed on administration leave or reassigned this year amid a large-scale downsizing of the agency, which had played a leading role in deterring attacks on election systems and combating disinformation about voting. Okay, so we got that going on. So we have what we can take from reality in front of us actually happening right now. Then we can take this information and go, okay, so this person who's now in a position of pretty good power when it comes to election integrity is bringing up some ideas about using national emergency and so on and so forth to dictate local and state governments and elections and all that type of stuff. And then there's been some other things happening that may also be playing an effect when it comes to elections as well. What to know about redistricting efforts across the United States. Trump's desire to secure the Republican majority in Congress has prompted an unusual burst of mid-decade redistricting in multiple states. North Carolina is the latest to take action. Texas was the first to answer Trump's call to redraw its congressional districts for the GOP's advantage ahead of next year's elections. Democrats in California countered with their own redistricting efforts, followed by Republicans in Missouri. Other states are considering to join the redistricting battle. So basically what they're doing is they're trying to draw new lines for districts to make it so there's more congressional seats for Republicans than Democrats, which makes it easier for them to retain power in those districts. That's what they're trying to do. And so you have California, Texas, and a whole host of them that are all getting on board with drawing new districts. Says the U.S. House districts typically are redrawn once a decade immediately after a census, but some states have no rules against redistricting more frequently than that. And the U.S. Supreme Court has said that there's no federal prohibition on political gerrymandering in which districts are intentionally drawn to favor one party, which that seems like it needs to be fixed. Whether it's, that just doesn't seem right, but it's what they're saying. So a state can just redraw districts whenever they feel to try and gain seats, which again, that doesn't seem right. But we have a lot of states all doing this now because Trump has called for it for more, to make sure that he holds the seats. Then there's this. Trump's DOJ prepares to send election monitors to California and New Jersey following requests from state GOPs. So now you have federal agents going to monitor state stuff, which that never happens, but it's happening now. And then this one is fascinating. On top of it, this one makes me laugh. Republican buys Dominion voting systems, forces them to drop lawsuits against conservatives. So the Dominion voting systems that were used during the 2020 PSYOP rigging have now been bought by a Republican and dropped all the lawsuits that this company filed against conservatives who align themselves with the Trump administration. Dominion Voting Systems has been acquired by founder and chairman of Liberty Vote, Scott Leindecker, in a deal which included dropping lawsuits against conservatives. Leindecker, former GOP election reform advocate, has officially become the sole owner of Dominion after making the deal contingent upon dropping several remaining lawsuits against prominent conservatives and One American News Network. Leindecker further disclosed to the caller that remaining litigation with MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and former Trump campaign attorney Sidney Powell will be dropped by Dominion Voting Systems as part of the acquisition agreement. So buy the systems, buy the company, and drop all charges and lawsuits against Trump's friends. Dominion also filed a lawsuit against Herring Networks, which owns One American News Network, in August of 2021. The lawsuit remained undissolved, although Leindecker further confirmed that future litigation will be discontinued following the acquisition. The Liberty Vote will be inheriting ongoing litigation with former Overstock.com CEO Patrick Byrne. The Daily Caller had learned the acquisition makes Dominion a fully American-owned company, a shift Leindecker said is designed to strengthen public confidence, enhance transparency, and rebuild trust. It's exactly what the WEF was about when the year that Trump took over. Remember? Rebuild trust and the integrity of U.S. elections. If you guys can't see through all of that, I don't know what to say. But man. So, is it possible that they're planning something relatively soon, maybe in line with the midterm elections, to try and let this be a major part of their Project 2025 reshuffling of government and so on and so forth? I'd say it's possible. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm not saying there's going to be riots breaking out. I'm not saying that any of that stuff's going to happen because we don't know. This stuff can change very quickly. But We have a lot of evidence in front of us that says that they may try something. And so I just want to put that forward on that. Misfit Russ, say you are terrible.
You are terrible.
There you go. All right. On to the last thing. Try and get through this. Again, we got church and stuff tomorrow. So, okay, I want to bring this up. Yeah, how do I want to go about this? This is I don't know about this thing. We'll just kind of talk about it, and then I'll give you my thoughts on this. So there's this. I saw this start going around social media, and it says troops training for potential nationwide civil unrest. Troops must be ready to deploy no later than April 1st, 2026. So if we jump down, it says the memo lays out. So this guy apparently received this memo, images of this memo that came, that's communication between Hegseth and the National Guard deployment group, the Guardsmen. There's just, yeah, we'll just see. So he says the memo lays out guidance for the formation of the National Guard Response Force, the NGRF, citing that the executive order by Donald Trump that deployed the DC Guard to crack down on the Capitol's crime as one reference for the NGRF's creation. Now, this guy, he claims to be have some affiliation with the military, like he's been in the military. That's what he says, and he said he's not only had this verified by people on the inside who said it's good, but then he's also said that people have even his knowledge of the stuff. People have even come to him to verify things as well. So you just got to take it with if you believe the guy or not. He's just some dude. I don't know who this guy is, Anthony Cabasa. So that's just you're going to have to just believe what he says type of thing to take with it. So just throwing that out there. Says the memo also redirects all NGRF components to be operational no later than April 1st, 2026, raising the question as to what the federal government believes might be in store this upcoming spring. The way this newly formed National Guard unit would work is The way this newly formed National Guard unit would work. It's a misspelling. It should create a state of NGRF unit to be activated to respond to mass civil unrest. The goal is to have the entire unit, up to 500 members, be ready to deploy within 24 hours to a specific state location. It can currently take up to 72 hours for soldiers to be on the ground in cases of widespread riots, and most National Guardsmen are not currently trained for civil unrest scenarios. Troops part of the NGRF will be trained on how to respond to violent crowds and proper use of large crowds using batons and non-lethal weapons by tasers and OC spray. And so he puts all these, he takes the images of this thing and puts it in here. We're not going to go through all of this stuff. And he says, my source also tells me that the formation of the unit like this is not normal and unusual, since soldiers who are part of different task force are apparently being assigned to be a part of the NGRF, with some of the troops being pulled into the new response force, being a specialized troop that has been trained in chemical, biological, and radiological and nuclear incidents. To my knowledge, I've never seen an order like this before, the source explained, hoping this is only to be safe and a precaution, and none of this will be used in a real scenario. The source further added, in hopes that we never have to activate or deploy these units across the nation due to potential civil unrest. So, here's my thing on this. First of all, the guy who has that, I don't know anything about this guy. There's no way to validate this guy. It's an unnamed source, which news and investigators and stuff use unnamed sources all the time, which you can't necessarily hold him against them. But it is an unnamed source. The other thing that I have is the images that he has doesn't show a header, and it doesn't show a signature line. Those are two ways that are usually pretty safe to determine if something is real or not. We don't have those. We don't have the header. We don't have the signature line. So that really makes one question. The other thing is I looked at how this stuff is written in these pictures on this memo. There's some language that just is not used in orders like this. One being right here, requirements. States will train, equip, and make NGRFs operational NLT 1 April 2026. They don't ever use abbreviations like NLT for no later than. They usually write that out. So again, this could be an approach of Hegseth's new thing. Maybe they're using those abbreviations, but ones in the past haven't ever used anything like that. So that gives me caution there. But at the same time, we see what is happening and what they're currently doing right now and the possibility of what may come. There's a chance that this may be real because of that. So I don't know. Again, I've received quite a few emails from people asking about this thing because they've seen it getting passed around. And I have no way of validating it. I'm cautious about it. The one thing that is interesting regarding it is just the other day during this media session, somebody asked Hegseth about this thing, and I'll just let you hear what he says, and then I'll comment on it. So,
Surprised when you find out.
I have a question for Secretary Hegseth. Sir, a memo circulating on social media details the establishment of a National Guard response force that's going to be trained in crowd control and civil unrest and deployed in all 50 states by April of 2026. Can you verify the authenticity of that memo, and do you have any more information on the operations?
I'm not going to answer particulars on something that may be in the planning process, but we definitely do have multiple layers of National Guard response forces, whether it's in each state, whether it's regionally, whether it's Title 10 active duty, whether it's Washington, D.C. We've got a lot of different ways that constitutionally and legally we can employ Title 10 and Title 32 forces, and we will do so when necessary.
Okay, so when asked about this thing in particular, which I don't know who the reporter is who asked about it, but good job. That's a good question. Hegseth neither confirm nor deny that it's real. Usually, not all the time, usually when somebody neither confirms nor denies something, usually it's true. So that adds a possibility of this actually being legitimate. Again, just take that with what you will. I'm just giving you the facts. You can make up your own mind from there. So that is interesting that he neither confirmed nor denied. And he also said that it could, he's not going to answer something regarding something that may potentially be being worked on. That's kind of what he said on that. So maybe this is legitimate. Maybe it's not. He didn't confirm nor deny it. I have questions about this thing itself and what's missing and how things are spelled and whatnot. But you look at what's happening, there's a chance that this could be valid on this. My perspective on this and how I would approach it and how I'm going to personally approach it. So it's up to you how you want to take it and whatnot. I'm not going to say that this thing is flat out fake, but I'm not going to say that it's real either. This is one of those situations where I think the best way of approach is to just keep it in mind, hold on to it, and then start paying attention to everything following from here. And if you start getting whiffs of something that may validate this, add that on and keep building a case, whether towards fake or towards real that way. And just keep it in the back of your mind. That's how we need to do a lot of this stuff. And I don't think we do that. We tend to just go, I have to have a true or false position. I can't just sit there and wait and pay attention and collect evidence and build a case. And I think we need to build a case when it comes to something like that. So again, there's points that said it could be real and points that say it could be fake. So we just need to hold on to it and pay attention. And if things come along that validates or goes against this thing, then that's how we should go about it. So that's my view on that. and take your own view on it. So on that, to finish this thing off, I wanted to end with this as opposed to start with it, because we just went over a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of things that are currently happening that appear on this list. And so this thing is, I titled it End of an Empire. And over the past year, over 2025, when we've been watching what's going on, I believe that we have seen enough evidence and action that points to the dismantling of this country, the dismantling of the American empire, and it's being transferred into a authoritarian regime. It's being implemented, and there's this political philosophy thing that I've seen where it's 16 steps or 16 indicators, 16 markers. There's various ways that they call it to authoritarianism. And it's, you must complete these 16 steps in order to install an authoritarianism system within a country. And this is going off of history. This isn't somebody just making something up and creating a list. This is going off of taking history of past authoritarian regimes, dictatorships, empires, monarchies, and all these types of things, and taking all the ways that they created their governments and comparing them and creating a list and compiling 16 steps to make it happen. As we go through this list, I want you guys to pay attention. Have we or are we seeing these things happen in our country right now? 16 steps to authoritarianism. Cult of personality. A leader that people follow no matter what. It's the cult of personality, a specific leader, a specific ruler that people will follow no matter what. Weaponization of law, using the judicial system as well as law in any way possible in order to apply your authoritarian policy and remove opposition. Revision of history and culture. This is basically not only a revision of history of the leader themselves as they come to power, building legends and myths and so on and so forth to increase his ability to be a cult of personality, but also revision of history and culture in the country to conform to what the cult of personality wants to install. Elimination of representation. Removing the people's voice. That's what that means. Consolidation of executive power means taking the power of all systems and departments that are there for checks and balances and funneling it back up to the executive power situation or group. Persecution of political opposition. Removal of any of those that are a threat or have a voice against your regime. Fusion of religion and nationalism, utilizing a religion of that country as well as the nationalism of that country, putting them together, making it that if you are a part of that religion or you are a nationalist or a patriot or whatever they may call themselves, they funnel them together and go, we must all stand together for our religion, for our country. Suppression of intellect and expression. This is basically suppressing education, suppressing intellectuals, suppressing experts, and suppressing the arts and the creative industries, which may go against or disprove the cult of personality, the revision of history, and the authoritarian government that they're trying to install. The dehumanization of people. Basically taking a group of people or groups of people and making them less human, so whatever is done to them, you don't have any emotional reaction to. So that could be various groups and people depending on where you're at, the country that you're at, and the time that you're at. Privatization of military and police. That one's pretty self-explanatory. Establishment of state-run media, so basically suppressing independent, truthful journalism, and installing a state-run media, which is we're going to feed you the information that we want you to have. Glorification of war and expansion of your country, geopolitical or globally. Corporate cronyism over Congress, basically installing corporations in the place to make decisions that Congress normally would. Country over human rights, which means give up your rights for the greater good of your country through nationalism or religion. Elimination of the financially poor. This usually comes with economic downfall. They blame the poor for the economic downfall. So you have to eliminate the financially poor, however they choose to do so. And deployment of emergency powers. Utilize emergency powers that take power and control away from the checks and balances system towards the executive order or the executive power so they can make all the decisions and go on and so forth. According to history, it's these 16 steps of authoritarianism that have led to dictatorships, authoritarian regimes, empires, monarchies, and so on and so forth. These are how it's done. Now, again, we could go over the entire list and point things out. If you guys see what's happening, I think most of these have been done so far here, but that's my perspective on it. Now, a lot of people would say, but if you go back in history, other presidents have tried and done things like this before. I agree, but the thing is when you go back in history, whether it's Biden, Obama, Bush, and so on and so forth, just take it all the way down, you may have seen 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe come in that they're trying to do. You may see one come in and then go away and so on and so forth. You may have seen various points of this come in during their rulings. I call them rulings, presidencies, whatever. But during their presidency rulings. But for the most part, we haven't ever seen like the full list be deployed all at the same time. I think we're currently seeing this full list being deployed at the same time right now. Now, again, that's my perspective. Take with this what you will. Go with it however you want to. Take a look at these points and think about what's happening right now, and you can kind of come up with your own things. But this is, I think we are seeing these 16 steps to authoritarianism being deployed right now in front of our very eyes. But again, that's my perspective. But the thing is, while we may be seeing authoritarian rule and the dismantling of the American empire right in front of our very eyes right now, it doesn't really matter, because for us as citizens of heaven, we fall under a monarchy of Jesus Christ as King. Our rulers, our kings, our presidents, prime ministers, or whatever you want to call them, whatever these countries call them, the royalties, mean nothing. We don't fall under their rule, because even they fall under the rule of Christ Jesus. That is something that I hold on to for my own encouragement. That is something that I hold on to keep my sanity as I watch these things unfold right now. That's why I don't panic. I don't worry. I don't fear. I don't, get emotionally distraught. I call myself callous to the things that are happening right now, because I understand that this really means nothing in the extent of eternity and where we will be and whose rule we do fall under. And so I don't panic. I don't worry. I mean, again, I always like to do it. It's like we, in the here and now, we think about all the problems that are happening around us. Whether you're here in the United States or you're watching from some other country, you're dealing with your own problems, personal, country, and a whole bunch of other things all happening. But in the grand scheme of things, if life is a vapor, that problem that you're currently dealing with is even smaller than a vapor itself. However small you want to call that. I'm not a physicist, so I don't know how all that works. But still, I always like to view it that way. Problem's still a problem, obviously. But in the grand scheme of things, that's usually something that I come up with that gives me comfort. And again, as this empire falls, we will get snatched up. As this world falls and goes off that cliff, we're going to get pulled out before that thing finally tips over the edge. And I think we need to use that not only for our own encouragement, for our own fuel to the fire to get out there and witness to people, but use it as a way to encourage and edify one another in the body of Christ, but also to go out and witness to others and utilize that as a tool to share the gospel with them as well, which the gospel is as simple as ABC. A is you admit that you're a sinner. The act of repentance, the changing of mind, metanoia, turning from self to Christ. Everything about this world is about self. Everything about this world is self. All the religions are about self. The government's about self. Politics are about self. Work and jobs are about self. Everything is about self. But the one thing that stands alone that's not about self, but is about Christ, is Jesus Christ alone. He says, turn from all of that. Trust and believe in. And it's when we repent, when we change our mind, we turn from self to Christ, that allows true belief in Jesus Christ. We believe that Jesus Christ is the one and only begotten Son of God, that he came down 100% man, 100% God, the God-man, the one and only, and lived the perfect sinless life. Perfect sinless life, which means he was the only one qualified to carry the sins of the world, my sin, your sin, upon his shoulders, a weight that none of us could bear. None of us were qualified to carry, but he carried it to the cross where he was crucified and he died. But because there's power in the blood of Jesus Christ, and he did exactly as he said he would and exactly as he promised he would, he defeated death and rose again on the third day. For all who believe in him shall not perish, but live forever in his presence and in his glory. The glory is his. He did the work. He did it all. There's nothing that we can add. There's nothing that we have to do. He did it all. Tetelestai. It is finished. Now remember, knowing and believing are two different things. You can know the story. You can hear the story 1,000 times. You can recite the sinner's prayer. But if you have not placed your faith and your trust, your belief in Jesus Christ and the finished work upon that cross, then you do not have salvation. If you place your faith in Christ, you have placed your belief in him, in his work, and in his blood. You must believe. You must believe. And see, we call upon the Lord. When we receive salvation, we are indwelt with the Holy Spirit, and we receive a supernatural gift of prayer that allows us a direct line, direct access to the throne room of God, to God himself, the Almighty, where at any hour of any day we get to communicate with our Father, our Heavenly Father. And we say, Lord God, thank you for sending your Son, Jesus Christ, to sacrifice himself upon the cross so that I may live. I owe you my life, for Christ gave me his. Lord God, please be with us as we navigate these incredibly dark and deceiving waters around us in this world, Lord. We understand that Satan's army is mobilizing and gaining more and more ground as we head towards that day of the Lord, but we understand, God, that you will send your Son to snatch us away. And that brings us comfort. We are called to edify each other with that promise and with those words. And we know that when you give us a promise, you hold to it. Lord, give us the strength to make it through each day. Give us the boldness to speak your name in places where we would otherwise be afraid to do so. Whatever may come our way, Lord, just give us you, Jesus. We say, come soon, Lord Jesus, Maranatha. In your holy name we pray. Amen. All right. We are way late, running out of time. We have a few questions. So, we're going to try and jet through these, which that's normally what we do. But yeah, let's see what we can do here. Excuse me. Let's see here. Let's see here. Misfit Russ, this is hard, man. I can't tell who half of these people are, man. Okay. Are we technically living under a war powers type of situation? We're living in kind of no man's land right now. I'd say we're living in between, how it's supposed to go, or I don't want to necessarily say that because how it's been recently is not how it's supposed to go anyways. But we're kind of living in between the old regime and the new regime. And the new regime brings that war powers type of thing in there. So I think we're right in the middle of the transition period. So I wouldn't say that we're on either side right now. I'd say we're in the middle of transferring over. So that's what I would say. I think we're getting close to the war powers type situation. That's when you start getting into things like the emergency declarations, Insurrection Act, martial law, and stuff like that. I know a lot of people have been talking about that for a long time. We'll see what happens. So, but I think we're in that transition period right now. Mary Bennett 60s or 6718 question. Do you think that the decision to refuse to allow Israel to annex West Bank is causing all these calamities? You're talking about the Genesis talk about the curses and the blessings and stuff. Do I think that first of all, I don't think the United States has any control over that. If you look at who controls political Israel, then you would know that they're under direct control under the puppeteers themselves. So I know a lot of people like to talk about, Trump in the United States and all that type of stuff. They're the ones that are orchestrating Israel and stuff like that. Israel has no say, or U.S. has no say in what's going on with the Israel stuff right now. Political Israel they're directly controlled. So I don't think that has any play on this. I think that there's other actions that have been taken in the past that have resulted in possible judgments and stuff, which that's a whole different discussion, a long one to have on that. But no, I don't think that the U.S. decision to allow, or with the Israel annexation of the West Bank has anything to do with that. That's me personally. I know there's a lot of other people that would disagree with my take on that. That's fine. I'm used to standing alone on that. So that's my position. Let's see here. Stephanie, really? Can you elaborate on exactly what Trump is wiping with our laws and constitution? It's where the Charmin goes. I'll leave it at that. Let's see. Lori S. Regarding the chaos Trump wants to implement with his ultimate deal, are they trying to eliminate people? I think it would be a case of people eliminating people in that way, and then removal of political opposition. So I think there's a form of eliminating people. Yes, I do believe so. T. Zach, is there any news source we can trust at this point? So this is I gotta do one thing. Hold on 1 second, T. I gotta do something real quick. Go there. Oops. There we go. So, T, is there any news source that we can trust at this point? This is one of those situations, and I want to talk more about this because it pops up in my head all the time. When it comes to reading the news, when it comes to news sources, paying attention to what's going on, first of all, you can't take the news and everything as God's honest truth. You can't ever do that. The other thing is you can't take one news source and go, well, that must be the story, and then just roll with that one news source. That's what, and I'll just blatantly say it, that's what most prophecy podcasters do. They find one news article of in a pile of news sources that they just scour every day. Those are the news sources that they go to. They find that one news article that's interesting, that get people watching, that could be somewhat true, and then they speak on that one news article going, this is the truth of what's happening. While I pull up news articles and read them and talk about them on screen, I usually choose a news article that has the best concise information, that I have gone outside of that news source to multiple sources and to compare and go off of that way and make sure that it's been validated by other sources. And then I go with the most concise one that I can throw up on screen, as opposed to pulling up 5 or 6 different things and trying to go through it. Now, we've done that in the past when I do deep dives because it has to be done that way. But when it comes to stuff that we're talking about, sometimes the best way is to just go and validate it and then find the concise one so I can show you guys. And even then, you just take it with a grain of salt and you compare it to what you're actually seeing happening in the real world. So again, it's not just basing it off of one news source. It's not basing it off of several news sources, but it's utilizing one source with multiple sources with what's happening in reality and then vetting it that way. There's a whole lot to it. That's the best way to do it. So when you say, is there any news source that we can trust at this point? It's still no, but there's compare and contrast and going to various different sources. Some are better than others, and you kind of have to do it that way. I know that's a lot, and it's probably just confused you. I didn't mean to, but that's the best way to do it. Now, there's some news sources that I suggest you just outright stay away from. CNN, NPR, OAN, Newsmax, Gateway Pundit, stuff like that. Those ones just stay away from because they are obviously propaganda. And then stay away from opinion pieces. Just stay away from opinion pieces. Unless you're trying to maybe find a different angle on something that you're trying to critically think through. But if you're just looking for news, stay away from opinion pieces. So hopefully that helps. I know that was a lot. Hopefully that helps. Edward McKelvey question, who was the $130 million donor you're talking about for the paychecks of the United States military, which that only pays like 10% of the daily paycheck? I'm working on, there's more depth to it than just who is it. There's depth to it, and I'm currently working on it. Hopefully by Tuesday's show, I'll be able to go in depth on that. So hang on to that one, Edward. Julia, Miss Mustard. What do you say to people who are convinced that we need to endure the immediate financial pain of tariffs for the long game? What is the long game? Bringing manufacturing back to the U.S.? This is a whole discussion in itself, Miss Mustard, but that's what I've heard. That's what you hear from the Trump administration. That's what you hear from Scott Bessent. That's what you hear from the MAGA community, because they're just repeating what they've been told from the Trump administration. That you just need to suffer the economic pain now, because the long game is to bring U.S. manufacturing back to the United States, which will then make it so prices are much better for you later. That's what they're telling you, and it's a load of excrement. Yeah. So you have the right idea, Mustard. That's what they're trying to tell us. Patrick Starr question: if the U.S. bombs and invades Venezuela, how dramatic is this move, and what could this possibly lead to? So again, this is a case of, honestly, like a lot of speculation. So it would be a regime change. They would install a leader that would, I would say, align with quote unquote conservative values. We're seeing a lot of that lately. We see what's going on in Japan. I don't know if people saw the new prime minister. I can't remember her title, but the first woman in that position who leans heavily conservative. Then you see what's going on with Argentina, with Javier Milei. And you're seeing some other European countries that are going quote unquote conservative or nationalists in how they view things and stuff. There seems to be a shift in that way. So there would be a regime shift that would be conservative, that would make deals for their minerals that they have there, rare earth minerals, because there's a lot in Venezuela. And I would say oil on top of that as well. The repercussions, I know Colombia would probably be in the war zone of that, so there may be something involved with Colombia and possibly some other South American countries in that region that would probably feel the after effects as well. Would this spark a world war? No. This would be more of a region shock as opposed to a world shock. That's speculation, and it's broad speculation at that, but that's about all I have for you, Patrick, on that one. Okay, just a couple more questions, guys. Romaha question: Zach, as the bride of Christ, who the church is called, how do you see our removal happening before the time of Jacob's trouble? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. Time of Jacob's trouble would be Daniel, that's in Daniel's 70th week, which Daniel's 70th week sits within the day of the Lord. And I hold to the belief that there's going to be a gap period between the rapture and the day of the Lord. So I hold to Matthew 24, that the rapture is going to occur when the world is still going about their daily business. While there's chaos and uncertainty and stuff happening right now, people are still just going about their daily business. And I believe that the church would get pulled out during a time like this. When? Not sure. But that's why I don't think a financial collapse is going to a global financial collapse is going to happen while we're here. That's why I don't think a world war is going to happen while we're here. I don't think Ezekiel 38 is going to happen while we're here. I don't think that stuff's going to happen while we're here. So I think it would be in relatively, I mean, these are rocky times, but they're not global changing shockwave times. And I think that's when the church gets removed. I don't know if that was the question that you're asking, but I'm not exactly sure the specifics of the question that you're asking. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's see here. Clara, where did you get the corgi shirt? The tactical corgi. Everybody needs a tactical corgi. It's a company called 9 Line. They're a military veteran thing, shirt company. And they had a corgi shirt on there. I don't know how I found it, but they had a tactical corgi and a tactical possum shirt. And I thought they were cool, so I got them. That's where I got it. And last but not least, Victoria. Why does cutting onions make us emotional when all we are trying to do is make a dinner? Onions just have a sad story. And, when one cries, the other cries for him. So if you cry when you're cutting an onion, that means you have a heart and you care deeply for the emotional story that onion is telling you. Simple as that. So, all right, guys, that's all I got. Super long one tonight. I apologize, but there's a lot of stuff to get over. Usual spiel. If you guys can, like, share, subscribe, get this out to as many people as you can. It's not about views, not about butts and seats, but it is about getting the warning out to people, getting people to Jesus. So if you guys can do me a solid like, share, subscribe, I would certainly appreciate that so we can help reach people and share the gospel with them. Also, if you guys can, follow me Rumble and Telegram. Those are my backup channels. If I get booted off YouTube, we'll be back up live streaming over on Rumble. So make sure you guys follow me over there. Telegram, post updates, announcements, and other little things I can't necessarily put in video format over on there as well. So follow me there. If you don't like Rumble, you don't like Telegram, that's cool. So make sure you guys bookmark the WretchedWatchmen.com website. It's your one-stop shop to find latest podcasts, announcements, live streams. The free book is on there as well. and everything else that you want to know with Wretched Watchmen. So make sure you guys go ahead, bookmark that page. And last but not least, if you guys would like to support this channel, what I got going on, I got donation links down below. CashApp, Venmo, and GiveSendGo. This channel is not monetized. I don't make anything from ads, views, or anything like that. Run solely off of your guys' generous donations. So if you guys would like to support this channel and help keep this thing going and do what we do, and with all the tangents and soapboxes and all that stuff, those links are below. Thank you guys for your donations, for your gifts, for your prayers, your encouragement, and everything. You guys are incredible. I love you guys. Again, you guys are the ones that make this happen. And I cannot thank you, and I cannot thank the Lord enough for you. So thank you guys. So that's it. Tomorrow is Sunday, so get your wretched, heathenic, misfit booties to church tomorrow, whether it's online, in person, doesn't matter. As long as it's a Bible-believing, Christ-following church, that's all that matters. And yeah, if we're not taken out of here by Tuesday, same time, same place, I'll meet you guys right back here. Peace out. Maranatha.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.